Good afternoon. I'm going to make myself really comfortable. I sweat. I'm a sweater, so that's what this is here. Preacher's kid. I don't know if you guys know any Preacher's kid. You ain't going to find one that's not going to sweat. I'm really, really excited to be in your presence today. Thank you so much for the invitation. We've been talking about this for a very long time. I was hoping by the time we had this part of the conversation, my second book would be out. It's done. I finished it a couple months ago. It's called Choose Your Own Adventure. Most of what I'm going to be talking about today focuses on chapter 3 of that book called Mastery. And we're going to talk a lot about that today because I've figured out, I've been allowed to learn that the struggles that we are challenged with, the struggles that I've been challenged with, I had tools to deal with those challenges already in my body, but because no one told me that, I didn't look. And so I ended up getting in a lot of trouble, which is what the first book is about, Deliver Yourself from Evil. How to get yourself out of trouble that you didn't even know you were in. That book has won a National Book Award. I'm really, really excited about that. So people are going to be talking about that book, but the second book, I think, is at least as good. In some instances, I think it's better. I didn't realize when I wrote that book that the story that I'm telling is universal. There is and I actually have notes. I have things that I'm going to do, but I'm trying to just set a stage. If you don't mind, I feel like I'm at home, so I feel like I can just kind of do this without I need to do it. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. If I say something that you don't understand or you want more clarity, more context about, please stop me and let me know. It's important that what I do is not about me so much. It's about bringing resources in the room. As I said, there are resources that lie dormant because we don't pull on them, but they're always within our reach, within our grasp, if we know to ask. So what was I about to say? I was about to do a whole thing. I didn't know when I wrote this book that it was a universal story. I thought I was just telling my own life experience, but based on comments that I received from people who were reading the book, they weren't talking about me. They were talking about themselves. So the title, I was writing Deliver Yourself from Evil. And then once I realized, I did some other research and I'll share with you how I found it. Once I realized that this was a universal story, I came up with the subtitle, The Hero's Journey, and realized that this is the first of 5 parts. I'm going to start with why these are for me. I don't necessarily want to be scripted. I have notes of things that I'm supposed to say, but I want to be able to flow and address the issues that are in the room. We're in crisis. I don't have to tell you this. We're in crisis as a nation, as a people, as a community. We've been in crisis, but there is a new level of gravity coming, and already is here, that we're not ready for. Just to be honest, some of us as individuals are ready for it, but as a community, if anyone ever puts us in their crosshairs, they're going to take us out by the thousands. We're just not ready to engage. We've been distracted. And I'll say more about this later. So my agenda, and I do have agenda. Every speaker always has an agenda. My agenda is to share, A, how I found myself in a pit, B, how I got myself out, and 3, why my life is so ridiculously better than it was before I even knew I was in trouble. So if I had my choice to choose, I would choose to go back into the pit. Doesn't make any sense. It defies logic. And when my family hears me say that, they're like, what are you talking about? I learned that I was living so far beneath my potential while all the time everybody around me was celebrating me and was happy for my achievements. And I wasn't even at 50%. And I would have continued in that same direction, going after all these trappings, and still wouldn't have gotten half of my potential. And people would have been applauding me the whole time. The standard that the universe has for each and every one of us, it blows your mind if you ever see it. But sometimes the people around you conspire to hide your best from your own view. I just said something really big there, so I'm gonna sit there for a minute. And when this happens, and I promise you it's gonna happen because I've opened myself up. I have become in this moment a channel of energy on behalf of every soul in the room. Because I have given the universe permission to be used that way, I'm gonna hit frequencies that are about you and not me, right? That's just what happens when you open up, okay? So when I hit it, don't let me run past it without you getting what you need. This is about you, not me. All right? The coolest thing about the hero's journey is that it's a universal story. Joseph Campbell calls it the monomyth. He says that every story you've ever heard about anything from a kid, the first story you ever heard, your favorite story, stories you read, your kids, your grandkids, stories, movies, it's all one story. There's only one story. And name a story. What's your favorite story?
The Alchemist.
Why did you go to The Alchemist?
My favorite one.
The Alchemist is the hero's journey, quite literally. Somebody name another story.
Seeds of the Soul.
Oh, that's a fantastic one. Name another story. The Bluest Eye. Everybody knows Bluest Eye, right?
Yes.
Name another story.
The Wounded Healer.
Wounded Healer, one of my favorite. Name another story. What's your favorite story? Some people aren't talking yet. I'm trying to get you in the room. Because once you open your mouth, then you can receive what's in the room. Color Purple. Fantastic. Name another story.
One of my favorite movies is Love Jones.
Love Jones. Fantastic. Name another one.
The Witching Hour.
Witching Hour. Name another one.
The Strength of Love.
Ooh, that's good.
Invisible Man.
Ooh, one of my favorites. Name another one. Gladiator. Ooh, very much hero story. Name another one. Mahogany. Somebody else said something.
Story of Dorian Gray.
Ooh, fantastic.
Ooh, The Fire Next Time.
Fire Next Time. One of my favorites.
4 Agreements.
4 Agreements. Okay. Yeah, nobody ever says 4 Agreements. I love 4 Agreements. The 5th Agreement. I haven't read that yet. Yeah, I haven't read that one yet. Anyway, as we continue to talk, I want you to think about stories that you know, and I want to see if you can recognize some of the same patterns that we'll be talking about in the story, because Joseph Campbell's belief is that there's only one story, and we're all a part of it. We are all our own heroes in our own stories, but some of us have been distracted by some life event that has pulled us off of what we thought would be a hero's plot. So some of us have forfeited our power and potential and destiny because we feel like, surely, because I've ended up in this situation, whatever was supposed to flow to me can't come now.
Is this kind of like Purpose?
Kind of. Larger than purpose, though. It's almost like cosmic destiny. It's almost like when you were created, if my dad was talking, he would say, when God put his hand into the clay and shaped you and made you, right? He knew all of the pitfalls you were going to fall into before you even had breath in your body.
Yes, she did.
And in her, thank you, and in her wisdom, she endowed you with all of the possibilities to navigate those choices and struggles and obstacles, so much so that nothing can happen to you to change your destiny. The only thing that can happen to change your destiny is you give up and you forfeit it. What you can do, you can decide, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to stand out here on one of these interstates and wait till somebody takes me out. You do have the possibility. You can completely withdraw, but that's a very active withdrawal. You can also passively withdraw. Do you know what I mean? Anything that you know you need in order to exist and thrive and live, if you stop doing it, you are passively, moment by moment, disappearing. But the crazy part about that is the passive withdrawal is actually more dangerous than the active withdrawal, because if one of us got up in here and ran out in front of the street, what would the rest of us do? We wouldn't even let him get out of the door if we knew what he was doing. But if he's sneaking and withdrawing right before our very eyes, there's no alarm sounding. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
We have to be so careful with our own energy that we begin to intuit the plans of the people around us, so that we know when their disposition is off and their mood is off and their habits are off. Things that they've always done, they kind of don't do as much anymore. And because we're taking care of ourselves. Now, see, this is the thing. If you're not taking care of yourself, you'll be so distracted with your own thing that you can't see past your nose.
That's why wounded healer don't make sense.
All right? You see what I'm saying? And so part of what happens here in this context, in my mind, in my sanctified imagination, is we take care of each other so well privately that when we come together publicly, we spend our energy outward looking for who's kind of not quite themselves in the room. Do you feel that?
Yeah.
Do you accept that responsibility on behalf of the other brothers in Silver Lining? No, don't say you do if you don't. But I think that's what the moment is about, as I'm focusing more on what's in the room. Because I think we're accountable to each other in a way that we haven't really owned.
Right.
That's what I'm feeling. And I think that's why I'm speaking, because I think I need to charge us with that responsibility very explicitly and put that on the table. It's okay?
It's okay.
Now, none of this is what I was supposed to, when I say supposed to, right? But I open myself up to the possibilities of being a vessel in the room so that whatever needs to be said gets to me, and I'm not so pressed with my script or my presentation that I miss the most important reason for me being in the room.
Right.
Is that all right?
Right.
I can only do that if you give me that permission, though. Do I have your permission?
Permission given.
Okay. So my goal was to start with why, and I think you know my why now. You know my why? Okay. So what we're going to do, I'm talking about this in 3 phases. I call it 3 days, the hero's journey in 3 days. You may or may not know the scripture. I'm a preacher's kid. I've said this already, so you know, right? I come from a Judeo-Christian background and construct. But if you ask me if I'm a Christian, I'm going to tell you no. That's a whole conversation for a different day.
Mm-hmm.
I am tapped into the source, so I don't need someone to vet me.
You better
So,
tell that. You better build on that.
You don't need to give me no rule book. You don't need to give
That's
me
it.
no doctrine.
That's
I don't
it.
even need your theology. I am connected at the source.
That's it.
And if I participate in your denominational expression, it's because you aren't distracting me from what I'm already doing.
All right.
Right? Mm-hmm. There's a whole other conversation that I'll have, and that probably the 4th book is going to be on resurrection. So the way my story works, right? The hero's journey, and I speak in terms of circles because that's how the universe has revealed itself to be as our journey. Most of us think about our journey as linear. A and B. This is where I am. This is trying to go. Once I get there, I'm there. Well, the thing about linear journeys in the American meritocracy is once you get from A to B, guess what you're going to do? You're going to say, oh, well, I've gotten to B. My life's journey is getting from B to C.
To C, right.
And then once you get to C, guess what you're going to do?
Leapfrog again.
Right. And when will you ever be satisfied that you've reached to the end? Never. The trick of the enemy is exposed.
You better say that
You
part
will
again.
never reach the place where you say, you know what? I'm good. You'll never say it. It'll never come out of your mouth because we live in a construct that is much more about our consumerism than a connection.
You better go
Are you
ahead
hearing
now.
me? I'm trying to free some people in here.
Go
No, I'm serious. I'm
ahead,
serious.
go ahead
I'm
now.
serious.
Set the captain free.
I'm serious.
Go ahead
I'm
now.
serious. It would be better. It would be Harriet Tubman. At least it's credited to Harriet Tubman. They say she didn't say this, but she said if I would have been able to free hundreds of thousands if they had known they were bound.
Right.
It's the same thing I just got through talking about a moment ago. If someone is about to go do this drastic thing that explicitly communicates that they're giving up, we all jump. If we are walking around in chains, as we were a very few years ago, we are always liberation-minded. We never take our minds off the chains. It's almost though like spiritually, we were in a better situation. Ooh.
Come on now. Come on.
Do you feel where I'm about to go?
Yep.
We were in a better spiritual situation, physically bound, than we are now. That the chains are on our minds and not our bodies.
I'm done.
You hear me? So what I'm trying to do is equip you to be able to call to your own consciousness,
Yes.
your highest, most authentic, most connected, most whole, most healed, most happy self. Because you should be happy. You deserve to be happy. I don't care what's happened to you. I don't care what they've said to you. I don't care what you know about you. You still deserve to be happy. You are worthy of the best the world has to offer. But when we isolate ourselves,
Come on now.
right? When we put ourselves in silos, we are surrounded by failure and disappointment
I'm gonna tear this
and
building.
anxiety, right? So we talk ourselves out of our possibilities and we say, well, if I hadn't or if I had. But you're just doing that to yourself. You're having a dialogical, masturbatory conversation that's not serving any spiritual interest. No one's getting anything out of that.
Intellectual masturbation.
Come on. But if we would connect and see how my story complements yours, we would be less prone to fall into what I call a ditch. And that's my first day. My first day, I fell into a ditch. 2016. I'm gonna leave this up here for a second. 2016, April 23rd. I used to be a minister of music, right? I was in choir rehearsal. My phone rang. My brother actually lives here. My brother said, "You need to sit down." I was like, "Oh God." He said, "Rico was killed last night." So you don't know, of course you wouldn't. Rico is my best friend in Auburn. I say is because he's an is for me. I literally stepped into Rico's life when I was in undergraduate school at Auburn University, and God assigned his destiny to me to watch out for him. I became a surrogate brother, an uncle. I helped him stop selling drugs and do all the things that he was doing. His life completely changed around, and the community who knew him to be like the preeminent bad guy in the neighborhood, they watched his life go from 0 to 1,000 in a way that everybody was really super excited. And eventually I invited him to come to DC, where I was in grad school at the time. I spent my whole life, I made it my mission to save him. I don't know if anybody else in the room has ever identified somebody who you just like, if I just focus my energy and attention on them, I can save them. Has anybody else ever done that? So it was so bad that I had defined my success in the universe based on whether or not he was okay. You see the flaw in the thinking? And so when I got this call that he was dead, I had failed. And I considered myself having wasted decades of my energy. 4 days later, my father passed away. So I drove to Auburn to begin planning the funeral for him down there, and then came back here on Saturday. Came back to Huntsville on Saturday night to begin working on the obituary for my father. And if you knew my father was like Abraham and Moses rolled up in one person. He's on the cover of the book. My father integrated the University of Alabama in Huntsville when George Wallace was governor of Alabama. Woo. Robert Kennedy was on the phone with my dad to make sure that the National Guard was on hand in Huntsville when my dad walked into the school. That's the picture that you'll see on the cover, right? So I come from this tradition of equipping communities for their greatest success. My dad was a preacher, and in his mind, I was going to be what he was. My dad was an engineer. I became an engineer. My dad was a preacher. I became a preacher. My dad was a community guy. That's what I did, right? Everything he did, I defined my success based on his acceptance of me. Mm-hmm. So in the same week, the two platforms that I'm standing on, defining myself by, they both come crashing down at the same time. And I lost it. There was a spirit of grief that came over me that I did not know existed, right? And so I ended up in the hospital. The doctors couldn't figure out what was going on, but there was nothing physically going wrong with me. I had destructed myself from the inside. So that it wasn't going to show up. And they gave me every kind of test in the book, and everything came back negative. And so the doctor is standing over me. I remember this like it was yesterday. The doctor was standing over me, and he said, "You need to get your affairs in order." I said, "The devil is a liar." Oh, no. And it's funny. I don't even remember this. My aunt was in the room, and she said, "You looked at him like he was strange." He'd been 3 weeks up in the hospital. She said, "You put your hand behind your back and you lean back like this." She said, "Oh, no. I have work to do." In that moment, I got a revelation that I could resurrect my possibilities by changing my mind to represent my own interest, my own possibility, without giving a fuck.
Go ahead now.
About what anybody else thought about it. I liberated myself.
Say it.
But I still was broken. My body was still dying. But I spoke a possibility that began to manifest after I said it. So the question I have for you is, what is it that you are stuck in that because you haven't been able to change your mind about has kept you from getting to your best life? I'm going to say that again. What is it that you are stuck in that has prevented you from imagining a better future for yourself?
Just stuck on stupid.
I'm just going to go. I don't.
Yeah, go ahead now.
Leave that. I'm gonna let it sit for a few seconds. And I know I'm just rambling, so I have no idea what time
that's all right.
this is.
It's all right. Stay right
Keep
there.
going. Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah, stay right there. Stay right there.
So just hold that thought, and I'm gonna come back in a minute.
He gonna have me cussing myself out.
And so this is while we're waiting, background noise for those who are still in your place. And don't let me pull you out of your place, because some of y'all are having a moment. Stay in your moment. But for those of us who can continue, I'll say this. There's a story that I had heard when I was a kid. And the climax of the story was this quote, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days, I will raise it up."
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so while I'm sitting there in the hospital, this comes to my mind. Destroy this temple, and in 3 days, I'll raise it up. Okay, so you got to know, right? I come from where I come from, but I don't necessarily believe everything that they say.
Go ahead now.
What it is.
Go ahead.
Because, and whenever you, I don't know if you guys do any kind of affirmations or meditations or spiritual thoughts or whatever you do, once you start putting language to an experience, you are no longer actually describing the event, the phenomenon.
Say it.
What you are actually doing is sharing your interpretation
Go ahead now.
of the phenomenon.
Go ahead.
So as soon as you start talking about it has to become some version, some projection, right, of the thing, but not the thing itself, right? And so I've gone through several different moments where I've struggled with under the Western philosophy. We have to be sure about the things we follow. There's no area for negotiation. It's 100% certainty, or you need to go find something that you can be 100% certain for. Other cultures do not have that same kind of restriction. Asian cultures don't have it. African cultures don't have it. European cultures want to be 100% absolutely certain. They want to be able to prove it to a scientific certainty. You've heard this expression, right? Well, in a spiritual realm, that doesn't make any sense. But we have what we have. We've never been exposed. And I say we, I'm projecting, it's me. We haven't been exposed to all the other different ways that other cultures do this. So we think, well, in order for me to believe something, in order for me to be in something, I have to be scientifically certain, right? Actually, you don't. Actually, what you can do is you can try on philosophies and ideas and practices, and if they fit, if they wear well for you in the moment, keep it on.
Absolutely.
But because you are an ever-evolving species gifted with all of the powers of the universe, you may come to the place where that thing you put on 5 years ago don't look like it did when you first had it in the mirror. So what do you do then? You take that damn thing off and try something else. No harm, no foul. But sometimes we put ourselves into these places where we can't update and revise what it is that we're counting on for our forward motion. But nobody told you to do that. You can try it out. That's what our culture allows. So there's a process. The hero's journey is this process of discovering, what have I put on? What was put on me that may have fit me when I was a child or a young adult or an undergraduate that no longer quite fit me like I needed to. I call that evolution the hero's journey. And I use colors when I do that because colors have power. I don't know if you guys know. Colors have power. I'm wearing black because I needed to be free to flow in whatever energetic direction the situation called for. I didn't want to make the commitment, right? But these colors have power. And so from the bottom of your spine to the top, the crown of your head, there are energy systems in your body that you can pull on and add to keep you balanced, keep you aligned, right? Some days, the other day, the weather shifted and all of a sudden I had this headache, right? I could have gone on with my day like I didn't have a headache, but I felt like I was being called to pay attention to what was going on in my body. I was losing energy from places that I needed. So I stayed in bed that day, right? I missed some things that I had committed to. There were some reservations that I made that I didn't show up for, but I prioritized my own health above other people's satisfaction and happiness with me. I give myself permission to show up for me first.
There you go.
Then I show up for you. Just like on the airplane, right? If there should be a loss of air pressure. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
That's it.
You put your mask on first. And they don't tell you if you're sitting next to your mama, if you're sitting next to your pastor, you're sitting next to your child, and no. Regardless of whose lives you're investing in, you take care of you first. Because once you're gone, you can't help nobody else. And let me tell you something. I don't know if anybody else, if you've discovered this yet, whatever that thing is that you're working so hard to do externally, if you weren't doing it, guess what? No.
Somebody else.
Somebody else.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. I don't care what it is. You are not that unique that you are the only person that can make that thing the way you make it. Right? Give somebody else a chance to be that thing and take care of yourself. Monomyth, I talked about that. All right, so, and I'm going to start wrapping this up because I never will stop because there's too much. What I had to do once I came to the place where I decided that I was going to find my authentic identity is I needed a process of moving from where I was to where I wanted to be. But I couldn't just adopt this thing that had been written and prepared for somebody else. I had to write it myself, which is why I wrote the book. And so what some of us don't realize is that our realities are built from stories that we've told ourselves or been told about ourselves, right? The reason why you know where birds come from is because one day somebody told you where birds come from. You've never followed a bird. You don't really know. You were told a story that your experience has, to some extent, borne out. Most of the phenomenon in the universe are like that. We've never followed the bird home, right? We just trust the story we were told. We call those frameworks, right? And so when you decide, those of you who were on pause for a minute ago, I need to let you off now. Right? When you decide that you're ready to move into your new reality, your more authentic self, you actually can get from where you are to where you'll be. But you're going to need a framework to get there. You're going to need language.
Yes.
You're going to need a community. You're going to need accountability partners. You can move to where you want to go, but it's just not your imagination. You actually have to do certain things. And so what I was able to do in the hospital was create my own framework, and that's why in my mind I've broken it up into 5 different steps. I'm really excited that the book won an award. It's going to give me the chance to do some more national projects. Day one, like I said, I'm doing this in 3 days. Day one, my caption for day one is refuse to leave the world the way you found it. Now, what I mean when I say that is when you showed up in your family, there was a reality that was already present, right? If you live passively, you could expect that family to end your tenure the same way it was when you arrived. But there may be the possibility that you may be able to have an effect on it. Like I said a moment ago, this is not your priority. This isn't how you define yourself. This isn't your measure of success. But if you do well enough taking care of yourself, you will have something left over to take care of them. Okay? That's what I mean when I say refuse to leave the world the way you found it. The problem, though, is some of us are so consumed with distractions. Some of us are so consumed with work. Some of us are so consumed with relationship, bank account, family, houses, sex, pleasure, other people's opinions of you, that you don't even know what you think about you. You don't ever spend any time. You don't have any time in your day where your focal point is, how do I think I'm doing? So you don't know. And so you end up taking other people's measurement of you as how you're doing. I've already explained why that's flawed, right?
Yeah.
So those issues are day one. Deliver yourself from evil, right? In my mind, that starts with prophetic listening. When I say prophetic listening, I mean, sometimes people will come up to you with foolishness. Sometimes people will come up with you with wisdom. You need to be able to discern the difference between the two, because sometimes they could actually be saying the same words. My question most of the time is, first of all, am I in the kind of relationship with you that you should be getting insight about who I am and what should make me? Or do you have some other kind of agenda, so you're willing for me to, you think I'm not going to be able to discern your motive, so you think in the process of me figuring out who you are, whatever your agenda is can be satisfied. And by the time I figure it out, you're gone. Right? I call that prophetic listening. putting yourself in the position to be able to separate who in your life is adding to and who in your life is taking away, and being unapologetic about that. You know what? I've had a chance to think about it. Thank you so much for the 2.5 days that we spent together. That was the best weekend on the beach. I will holler at you in the afterlife. I think I'm good. I think I'm good. I appreciate you though. You know what I mean? We need to say peace way more often than we do, but we're so concerned about you know what I mean?
Yep.
The benediction. Right? Day 2. This is what I said most of the conversation, what I thought most of the conversation was going to be about, but I think we passed that point already. Book 2 is about mastering your own struggle, which basically says once you focus on something that you want to work on, you actually can become good at recovering. Did you hear what I said? You actually can become good at recovering whatever it is that you need to recover from, right? We don't need to give up on our value just because we have a reputation. Of course you have a reputation, right? You've lived all these years before you woke up. Of course people know you as you were. How else are they going to know you?
All right.
It's not their fault. But you don't have to keep replicating whatever they're thinking or saying about you. You don't have to rehearse that. And that's one of the things I appreciate. At the end of every chapter, I have a list of affirmations, right? Whatever you decide you want for you, you need to speak that out of your mouth. Because faith cometh by hearing, right? Mm-hmm. That includes your mouth. We are charged in the universe with dominion. We have power. Right? Creative power. And just like the worlds were spoken into existence, your possibilities can also be spoken into existence by you. That's what affirmations are. That's me saying. And what many people don't realize is every time you use a word about you, you pull those possibilities closer to you. If you say, I am successful, I am happy, I am content, I am good with me, those worlds, those situations that will confirm that draw closer to you. But if you say, I am tired, I am sorry, I am a mess, I am a failure, you're also pulling those worlds to you. And so more and more, your experiences in the day, in your week, in your life will bear out what you said because you're creating it. And what I'm hoping to remind you, you can take charge over what you create. Here's another thing that I wasn't planning to talk about. Don't think that you can be villainous, malicious, messy toward other people, and only good energy flow back to you.
You're gonna say it. You're gonna tell it.
Right? Don't think that now. It's not all about you, right? It's that same energy that you're speaking on behalf of yourself, right? It's supposed to spill over in the afterflow of someone else. But if you're creating mess and sending it towards somebody you think deserves the mess or can't tell the difference between the mess, that overflow is coming all back to you. And if they are taking care of themselves, whatever you plan to hurt them with, it's going to bounce off them. And all of it is coming back to you. We are responsible and accountable for what we create, positive or negative. And just like you can manifest something positive for yourself, you can manifest something negative. So you have to be really careful. It's not just about you. So this was day 2. Day 3, and I'm winding it up because I know.
Take your time.
God. Day 3, the next book, the book that I'm about to start writing now, which I'm hoping we will all be a part. It's called Embrace Your Own Shadow. So I don't know if you guys know this, but all throughout your life, there are certain things that you've said and done in public in front of your parents, your teacher, your coach, your friends, and somebody said, no. We don't do that here. We don't say that. We don't act like that, right? Mm-hmm. So your personality has divided itself in your body. There's this egoic version of you that comes to the top that governs how you perceive yourself. But there's another part of you that gets buried in your body that is the no version of you. the alter ego version of you, right? We call it the shadow self, right? It's the repressed part of you that if you've never let it get out, it becomes really, really powerful because you've been ignoring him or her or it all of these decades. And so every once in a while, somebody says something to you sideways and you go completely off. And they're like, the fuck? Where did that come from? It's because you've got this other you that you never let get any light, and all of a sudden somebody's they tried you one too many times. And he's like, you don't know me. I'm smiling, but I'm not pleased. You pull it on me. You about to see another side. You know what I'm saying? I know what I'm saying. Right? You doing that thing? Right. That is an actual person that lives inside you. That's called the shadow self. Right. And so one of the things that can happen is you can integrate the two versions of you. You don't have to alienate the shadow. The shadow is also you. Just because the people who you were around at the time couldn't appreciate that part of you doesn't mean that you doesn't have value or purpose in your destiny. And some of us have not found our perfect peace, our alignment, because we actually haven't figured out how to be our whole self, right? And so that's what the third book is about. I know I've said like so many thousand things. I was hoping throughout the whole time to be stopping and asking questions, but I was on a roll. And so I was just like, you know what? While I'm talking, let me go ahead and knock these things out. So can we segue and actually have some conversations about some of the things that you've heard, some of the things you thought? I tried to make sure everybody got hit at least one good time square between the eyes, but I may have missed somebody. Somebody in the room may feel like, you know what? They look like y'all enjoyed that, but I ain't getting nothing. So, what do you think? What are your thoughts? What are your impressions? Do you disagree with the whole premise that we are operating under? That's fine too.
I agree with it.
So I'm gonna tell you real quick. So a couple of people online. So Kennedy already said, pass the offering. He's on. If you don't hear any feedback from him online,
I like what you said. Because I think I was talking to my group with a couple weeks ago that you're always in a state of manifesting, whether it's good or bad. And I like how you brought that up. It's more that you don't make it. You're always making a decision whether you're manifesting good or bad.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Yes, sir.
So I think for the last 2 years, I've adopted this thing, live life on purpose. And then I've also said with no regrets, and it has to piggyback off of good or bad. And I know some author put out like you learn or you live or you learn or something like that. And so I continue to say it, and a lot of people, this happened confirmation for today. My dad being 82, and we're having a discussion my sister was watching church on TV, and she has been anticipating getting into a doctorate program. And it kind of like filtered the atmosphere. It was getting ready to go yesterday. She came and said, I went to an interview and I can't understand. Anyway, make a long story short, they didn't hire, nobody hired all these schools, and they talk about they need more teachers, and she's got her master's. And I was like, it don't define you. It don't take away from your qualification. And it set the whole atmosphere. My daddy, 83, riding the stationary bike. Let's go, son. I'm ready. Put on his polo shirt that ironed himself. And when my sister came in with that, he was like, I don't know. I said, okay, let's change this atmosphere. You ready? We all going. And I said, I don't think I'm going. She put on her bonnet. I'm like, okay, all right, Mother Hubbard, we going. I don't know what you mean. As I'm sitting here, she called me, and I told her, what I was doing. She calls me and she tells me, it's been in the email all this time. I got into the program for a paid position. Wow. And I've been saying to her, like, live life with no regret. I said it before I left, and they was watching church, and that's what the man was saying at Newburgh today, something about your tongue or whatever. And I said, this is what I'm trying to tell you. Like, you've been teaching in these schools, and you done certain things, maybe God is pushing you to another place, administration, where you're not willing to go. So I'm
Uh-oh.
texting her as you talking, like, and then she said, I got in this program, it's been there, I just didn't know. And I'm like,
Wow.
you know, like, you set the atmosphere for 8351 and a 55 person for the whole day. I'm closing this shit down. I'm trying to explain my day. We going, like, get your clothes, like, let's go. And so you have to, like, and the stuff that I've been through in the last year, like I was sharing with one of the brothers, like, I didn't know I was divorced. I'm texting people. Hey, Happy New Year, trying to be the same person. Marcel will tell you I'm consistent. Hey, like, I try not to be, if I haven't seen you, I know you or seen you on Facebook. Hey, my name is Trent. I'm consistent. I try to be like that. I text my advisor and she's like, I want to say hi to you, but I saw where your divorce is final. So I didn't even know, you know, so that's the kind of stuff that slap you down, you know, like you wallow in it. And I know Claude has been kind of commenting on my Facebook page, but literally when I post stuff, I try to put on there, I'm living life on purpose. To be able to take care of your 81-year-old dad and he choose the drawers he put on, tell you, no, I'm not putting on no briefs. I want my balls to breathe.
Go ahead now.
It's a blessing.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Literally, before I came, I was late picking up a watermelon because that's what he wanted, but he ate one at 2:00 this morning. Like, I told somebody, if you want sugar-free Hawaiian punch, if we ain't got it, we drain it and making it happen. So I live life with no regrets. I live life on purpose with no regrets. Whatever they say, whatever the doctor say, I mean, he got a tumor. It's not shrunk. I'm like, Daddy, I got a friend that came to visit yesterday. He ain't even 50, and he done had cancer and then another stage 4. You 80, about to be 82 in a few weeks. I mean, really. So what you saying, like, I went to down the face, like, offering time. That's why I was like standing up, like, this is all confirmation. In literally less than 50 minutes, she said, I'm in the program and I'm be moving with you. Yeah, go, I need you to go. All I ask your ass out of here.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I'm actually struck with the timing and being here. So I looked at my phone, not looking necessarily for information about something that was happening today, but this popped up. So Thrives and over the round table. And I saw the time, I'm like, oh, and I live right down the street. I'm gonna be walking distance. And your message is just resonating for me in so many ways. And something that I'm dealing with like in the moment. So
It's all right.
It's all right.
It's
buddy.
all right.
I struggle with
It's all right, brother.
negative self-talk. And I find myself, you know, I've given myself some credit for being intentional around reframing that. And I made some progress, but I feel that there is a foundation that I need to invest in that is positive, that is not simply, thank you, an exercise in responding to or weeding out the negative. Some of that is exploring more like, what is that story? Because I'm carrying a story that those particular thoughts, it may seem like, oh, it's not that big a thing, right? And investing in that positive. So when you talked about what you speak to and drawing that, I want to do more of that. Like, I don't like saying I'm trying to do, but that's why I think I need more of a focus. You mentioned Auburn, and one of my best friends came by my house yesterday.
It's all right, brother.
And he was helping me out with something that happened and has impacted me. And he said that he checked in with me today, and he said, "How you doing?" And I said, "I'm fine. I'm hanging out with Al, who's another friend of mine, of ours." And I said, "What you doing?" He says, "I'm in Auburn." And so when you mentioned Auburn, I'm just saying that to me it resonated. Like I'm in the right place between the space of my brothers, the healing space of my brothers, and what you facilitated. That I need more of this. And I need to invest more in my self-care. So I'm definitely gonna get your book, so thank you.
And we should talk whenever you want to. I've committed. The reason why I'm talking is not because I want people to read or buy my book. People are reading and buying the book, right? I'm talking because I want to be fully present in this community. And I have to be accountable to what I now know. I can't sit here and be the only beneficiary for what God has revealed to me. I'm responsible. So I'm saying what I'm saying because I want people to know I know how to pull resources from the universe. It's like a real thing. And I can help you figure it out. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I'm talking about
That's
it.
wonderful.
Yes.
And a few things. One, thank you. I've been a part of the Civil Learning Project for about 2 years, and honestly, this is the best session I've had. This really has. I really enjoyed this. Tuesday, I had my change moment, I guess you can call it. I had my redefinition from the stories that I had been told and accepted Tuesday morning, about 2:38 in the morning.
Wow.
I won't go into it though. 3, what was it? You mentioned the stories. The Fifth Agreement by Don Miguel Luis. Question everything. And that's what I think you presented to the group. Question everything. Number 4, I want someone to do a discussion or a review of the silo of race. And lastly, spirits are with you right now. Your father and your friend. When you started talking, before you started talking, of course, I'm looking out the window, I got a great view, right? Nothing's happening. When you started talking about them and sharing that story, the experience, yellow leaves started falling.
Wow.
When you stopped, not one of the leaves.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for giving me that. I wouldn't have been able to get that. Wow. 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 Wow.
Maybe it's because you're constantly comforted by it, so you take that for granted. And since you said that, we do a lot of things in this room, but in this room, since our first meeting in here, we've had Kwanzaa and burnt candles and called the ancestors. There's always been a presence here that has allowed all of us to feel safe. And we've talked about some things in this room that I'm sure, at least for me, that I've only talked about privately. And sometimes in private, I lied to myself. And you said something about your father being a preacher, but you were not a Christian in the concept of it. And it reminded me of something I wrote when I left ministry. I'm not a Christian, and I went through the reasons why I'm not a Christian, but I'm a believer and connect to the indigenous people, all paths.
Right.
And when you said that resonated. I didn't see the leaves fall, but I felt that energy.
Wow.
And I believe that in this room, we brought that energy. You woke it up, but we maintain that in this space.
Wow.
And it's really something that I'm very glad of that we do. And we find safety here. And that's the word, safety. When we find safety, we find comfort.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm done.
I'm not. I think I agree with him because sometimes with ministry and titles and some of our past history, we've been taken away from because of what that tradition is, and it makes you feel unqualified based on them playing lottery tickets and smoking and sexing and such.
Go ahead, Trent. Tell it.
It really does. It makes you feel like you're not qualified, but just listening to you, it makes me just like like my whole concept of and married to a PK's kid and seeing the exchange of the money from the first lady at the anniversary choir play, that like I said, I hate to say it, but for my father-in-law, rest his soul, pastor, superintendent, all that foolishness, and for him to tell me, tap me like me, hey man, need a little booty. Like, well, what did you say? You want some of this? Like, at the end of the day, when you add it up and you see all of this abroad, and they dressed up in these suits and things, I'm not taking away from nobody's religion or church,
Right.
but it puts me in a whole different perspective on to even be receptive or being denounced of what I'm capable of doing. I'm gifted to run my mouth. The other part about me that people don't know is that I can't spell a lot of the words that I say because
Say it.
I have dyslexia. But it does not denounce who Trent is. You know what I'm
You
saying?
better tell
That's a
that.
whole
It
message right
has
there.
not made me be identified as who I am to be pushed to where I know that I'm capable of being. And I know it's few people that I've met in here online or just in person, you have to announce your gift that you have because it's not based on what you've been taught to be titleized as. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ain't no preacher because you cuss. Y'all niggas been cussing. Y'all been teaching how your kids know how to say fuck and all this. And you know, say that, you know, one of my nieces told the state supervisors, the highest position in the Pentecostal church, bitch, where's you learning from? She said, my baby don't know. You that now. She heard you say it. And it's the highest position, you know, it's like the queen in the Black Pentecostal church. Look, bitch. She said, one and one like, ooh, give a piece of yeah, so, I mean, we've been denounced, and it, not necessarily in the church, but just, you've been labeled. I've been, you know, like my dad said, stop saying he's special. But that's literally one of the things that my ex-wife's sister comes said. He's special. Yeah, I got dyslexia. Yeah, I passed biology and don't know how to spell it unless I have a system with my phone.
Go ahead,
But I was
son.
able to pray. And this is the God honest truth. I was able to pray with the man that was the chair of the department. And me and the girl cheated on the test together out in the hallway. She failed. I passed the class in the lab and never went to the lab. But I went to a job and I said a word of prayer called all the grains, rice, pigs, beef from Africa, let them all have it. When I got my report card, I had an A. And I do not today, unless I put it in my phone and got to speak it. When you was talking, I was speaking to my phone because some of the stuff that you were saying, I was taking notes to put on Facebook. Like affirmation, people, more than 300 people say, Trent, you have confirmed affirmation.
Yes.
Help me. This is life to me. So I, you know, yeah, I'm not, I can keep going, but literally, I know I've been denounced. Now, I remember telling somebody, I ain't no preacher to you niggas, but I know I can preach to some people.
You better tell it.
I know that. Legacy.
I love you, baby. I love you, baby.
Okay, so I don't have closing remarks because Chauncey spoke for himself. I
Yes, he
told
did.
y'all before we started, did I not say that? You were going to be in for a treat. So, first of all, we need to thank Chauncey. I was back there having my own church mother, so, you know, despite what everyone else was doing, you know, poor dude here would say yes, and I was like, you know, I'm just sit back here and trying to be, you know, that individual that listens. But the one thing that struck me was that when you talked about being stuck, and we just had the Silver Skills Module 2. So for those who were here when he said stuck, I don't know how that resonated with y'all because we just talked about that. And we talked about that because it's up here on this board about being stuck. For those who've been through the skills, you know, the module talks about how we discussed how you get into this frame of mind and you can't move forward. So if you remember, and we asked you, you know, so how do you get stuck? How do you become unstuck? You know, that you're no longer at that point where you can't do. And so what Chauncey talked about today, eloquently in another realm, just expanded to me on what Module 2 is totally about. You know, how you have the affirmations, how you have to constantly tell yourself, I can do because of these other things. But literally, we just talked about this. And here is what the responses were from this past week's session on why they're stuck. So as you were talking, I was like, oh, you know, we know how to really do this here. But I want to say thank you. I want them to realize, see, when we said we were excited, we weren't just saying, you know, because he's cute and blah, 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 blah. There's a reason why we said we were excited. So once again, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I was looking to see if there were any more comments because clearly when Kennedy said pass the plate, it was a wrap.
Will this be recorded? Will we be able to watch this again?
It is.
Okay, good.
It is.
Yeah, I was gonna grab that silver ball and just start running.
You know, so any last comments? We need to have some more conversations.
Yeah.
because clearly you touched some spots that people are now open for.
Yes, sir.
So we need to have part 2, part 3, how many
Awesome.
parts you want.
Awesome.
Kennedy said you smacked her directly in the head.
Wow.
And I'm just encourage everyone to just keep all the brothers lifted in prayer. Keep them in your prayers because we all go through things. Some are silent, some are not silent. As Chauncey said, sometimes we put these walls up, but we try our best to look out for each other. We just got to be intentional. Just keep doing it. Yes, sir.
Next question. So, Chauncey, when do you think you'll start working on the shadow piece?
I've already started. I have a feeling that this group is a large part of that story. So I'm going to need your help. If you guys are interested in being interviewed, remember the shadow conversation is that repressed version of you. The times you've been told no, the times you've been, if you're interested in talking to me about that, I'd love to interview as many of you as possible. It's going to be, it's going to be a wild discussion, and I actually want it to be bigger than me.
If you can stand
Sexuality
it, put
has
me
to be
down.
part of that book. And I haven't really put sexuality in either of the first 2 books, but it has to be in the 3rd book. So I really need your intentionality for that
They'll be
process.
there.
Oh, yeah.
I can tell
Yeah.
they'll be there.
Yeah.
They're already planning,
Yeah.
Look at me, look at me, look at me.
You did not include it in there, but I identified my sexuality in your conversation.
Oh, go ahead, Tony.
Yeah,
You know, so
yeah.
it
And
wasn't-
thank you for saying that because it when you're talking about you, I was supposed to say this. I didn't say this earlier, but I can get up and talk about anything my whole life. I was raised to be that way from a boy, right? But never myself. Never me.
Yes.
Never.
Yes.
I've spoken a lot of places, whatever, never me. But now my charge, I am the center point of all of my work and intention every day. It starts with me. So I've got to do certain things. But so the first book, I'm building up my courage. Every time a book comes out, I'm stronger and more able to articulate what I like about myself and what I don't like about myself. So thank you for saying that. It means a lot to me. You were at my last, you remember that? Confrontation, media confrontation.
You're, for those who might want to.
Yes, if you can afford to purchase a book, they're $20. If you can't, I still want you to take a book because, like I said, I did not write this book to sell it. I wrote this book to help put tools in your pocket. So if you're interested, leave with a book.
Yeah.
However that.
You got Cash App.
I was gonna say,
Yeah, I have Cash App.
Okay.
When did you write it?
Give me your Cash App. And hand me my book.
Yes, he was.
Nick G.
There may be an underscore there, but it should come up. I really appreciate this opportunity. I do not take it lightly. So I hope you guys were okay with everything I said, because I know I said a lot of stuff.
So once again, thank you. Oh, we just need your attention for 1 minute. We do have an announcement.
I got 3. One is I have a bag of Lucerne here. I got an oversupply, so if anybody would like some, please come get some. That's number 1. Number 2, I'm trying to find someone with family in New York City, preferably in Harlem or Manhattan. My great grandniece is doing an internship starting next month for like 60 days, and I'm just trying to find a safe place for her to stay. Or hopefully, with a lady or a couple. If you know someone that may want to rent out a room, a couple of dollars on the side, please let me know. And lastly, I wanted to share with everyone, you may have heard the stories about monkeypox spreading across the world. In the majority of those cases, they're about men who are having sex with men. Be careful.
Stand there.
Yeah, like, put that on pause.
I'll
Come back. Let's talk about wellness. Some of us deal in cash. Chauncey.
If you want his Cash App.
Some of us deal in cash.
I already found it.
Oh, okay.
Yes, what is that?
It came through.
his
Well,
wife.
it's a nice thing. You speak.
Okay.
Not that young. Good. Not that young. You know what? Not that young. Right. If it ain't doing it, I'm gonna deal in cash.
Unless you got a pin on you.
I might be spelling it wrong.
It came up, but when I hit cash, it didn't do
No,
it.
we did the
So I think maybe it's capital. You gotta put the capital letters in there. Thank you. Make sure you put the capital letters in there. Oh, you know, like okay, good. Yeah. I think Zell is by your phone number. Yeah, so you just need my phone number. I'll write it. Somebody. Yes. Oh, yeah. Here's my number. Yep. There may be one right here.
Let me end this broadcast.
Yeah.